Hey fellow explorers, today I'm out on the streets of Georgetown in Washington, D.C., which is D.C.'s kind of most upscale, hippest neighborhood. And in this video, I'm gonna show you around. I'm gonna turn the camera around so you can see what I can see. And I am starting this walk at M Street Northwest and 29th Street Northwest, kind of the start of Georgetown from the district, and we'll walk this basically where you would take it into Virginia to the Key Bridge. So there's a few kind of major streets through here. I would say M Street is the big artery, K Street just down the hill, and then P Street just up that way are some good ones you can walk up and down. This is the commercial hub of Georgetown along M Street, so this is where you're gonna find the most shops, the most restaurants. P Street is pretty neat to walk up the hill that way to see a lot of the old classic houses here that still have like gas lamps that burn out in front. And then if you go down the hill that way, Georgetown runs up along the Potomac River, and so you can get some really neat views of the waterfront down there. What kind of makes, I think, Georgetown different and distinct from the rest of DC is that the metro, the subway, really doesn't run here. The Foggy Bottom metro stop is the closest, or the Roslyn metro stop in Virginia, that then you can cross the Key Bridge to get here. But otherwise you're driving, taking an Uber, or taking the DC circulator bus that for like $1 will take you from the Roslyn metro through Georgetown to Foggy Bottom, and kind of circulates that way. Now it's neat that the sidewalks here are these brick sidewalks. This, I mentioned upscale stores, this is an outpost of Le Labo. If we look inside, this is a really expensive soap and lotion store, like a bottle of soap in there. This is gonna cost you something like $60, definitely not cheap. Here's where you pick up the DC circulator bus that I talked to you about. You can pay that $1 cash. Here's an outpost of Sprinkles Cupcakes from Los Angeles. They got a location here. There's also a Georgetown cupcake just ahead. If you're looking for desserts, those are gonna be some quick, cheap, tasty ones. I really like this bakery down yonder called Baked and Wired. I think they have the best cupcakes in Georgetown. Why don't you try all three, and then you can let me know which one you like. But you know, I'm definitely here as a tourist today, but I spent about a year living in this area, and so I did try a lot of these cupcakes on pretty regular occasions. And a lot of the buildings here, super historic buildings, just like this one. This is part of Rock Creek Park, the old Stonehouse Museum and Bookstore. Open daily, just not right now because it's about 7:45 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. And so we got a few restaurants that still have their outdoor dining out here, remnants of COVID. The Mexican restaurant we just passed is a fajita restaurant. As someone who is from California, I think I'm going to pass on the Mexican food today. All the parking here, while you don't see single space meters, you use combined meters. It's all pay parking. Parking here, since there's really no metro that runs here, challenging, and so definitely expect to pay when you come to Georgetown. Here on the right, store called Showfields that looks a little bit like a small old school department store, kind of. Like if you look in there, you know what department stores looked like when they were small. And there's one of those DC circulator buses that I told you about. That one's going from Georgetown to DuPont Circle. So they run a few different routes. And then we look that way and we see the Potomac that we'll see more of when we get to the Key Bridge. This is kind of one of my favorite walks to do when I'm in DC. I like, because I'm a walker, I like to take the red line to DuPont Circle. From DuPont Circle, walk down P Street, kind of all the way in here to Georgetown, maybe like 31st or something, then come down to M Street, wander around here, and then walk back to Foggy Bottom to take my metro back to wherever I am going. There's an ambulance come by that we're gonna hear in just a moment. Here's kind of a like wow, loud. Okay, well, since they got us. A neat thing about Georgetown, all these old classic buildings, you know, a yellow one, the brick one, there's a Haagen-Dazs in this one, a lot of Irish pubs, lots of restaurants, lots of bars. If you're looking for nightlife, you'll definitely find a lot of it here in Georgetown, because there's also 2 universities nearby, which I'll show you about in a moment. But first, I want to show you this. This is an outpost of, I think it's pronounced Levine Bakery from New York City. They specialize in their cookies, and we'll take a look at this. These cookies, quite delicious. About $5 will get you one of these cookies. Do definitely check those cookies out while you're here. Pretty tasty. They have some seasonal ones. Right now it's the Rocky Road cookie. And they just opened one in Los Angeles, and when we went by there 2 weeks ago, the line was like 50 people down the block. People were so excited for those cookies. I like these pink flowers that are up here on all of the lights. If that's a summertime thing, probably not going to be so much in the winter. So the 2 universities I was going to tell you about, there is Georgetown University, and then there's George Washington University. So there's like 2 universities on either side of Georgetown, which is what also contributes to the liveliness of this. Okay, so this street right here, Wisconsin Avenue, going up that way, that like continues the shopping area too. So you could walk up and down Wisconsin Avenue, and then maybe when you're done exploring the shops, you could head up to Georgetown University up the hill, because it's pretty neat to explore that campus as well. Just a old classic campus. Here's another DC circulator bus. You see these things come around pretty often through here. They've got some public furniture they put out that you can enjoy the sun. And there's the Biddy and Bose coffee, closed at 7:45 in the evening, of course. Outpost of Pandora for some cheap jewelry. Sunglass Hut, if you need your sunglasses. Next to an outpost of Warby Parker for their sunglasses. But I feel like this Warby Parker, I don't know, they don't have anything in the windows. But I guess they're still open. I was concerned they went out of business, like a lot of things would have done during COVID. Over here, this used to be a big shopping mall, but now it's just kind of like a few stores out in the front. I think the shopping mall, the big mall that was in the middle, kind of died a slow death, unfortunately. I do like this extra wide sidewalk though, because the sidewalks have always been too narrow here in Georgetown, so I hope they keep this extra wide sidewalk through this street. We have an outpost of Sephora here on the right for all your makeup necessities. A big H&M over on the left. A little smoke shop popping out here from everything, where you can get your vapes and your hookahs. Chipotle if you need some cheap eats. And it looks like it must be trash night tonight with all the trash cans that are out here. If you need some cheap clothing in the midst of Georgetown, you will find it right here at this outpost of TJ Maxx. If you're looking for groceries, you used to find them over here across the street at Dean and DeLuca, but Dean and DeLuca unfortunately looks to be no more. Very sad. It was a cool grocery store. I think then some of your closest ones are around Foggy Bottom. There's like a Whole Foods and a Trader Joe's around the Foggy Bottom Metro. Now I mentioned Le Labo soap. There's also an outpost of Aesop soap, which are more like $60 expensive soaps. They often, when they're open, have samples that you can just go in and try. We're now crossing the street here at M and Potomac Street. I think we found maybe where that ambulance went to. There's a Gong Cha there for bubble tea, boba tea. You can see even the streets here are these classic bricks, which I should caution you, ladies, if you have high heels, be careful walking around Georgetown because it's pretty uneven. Super popular pizza place here is Pizzeria Paradiso. They make pretty good pizzas. Not really gonna find pizza by the slice. It's like a sit down, order a whole pizza kind of thing. Some of my favorite burgers in DC you'll find right here at Good Stuff Eatery. I think they're pretty tasty. You'll also find a lot of outposts of Shake Shack in DC, but you know, eat kind of one of the non-chains. I mean, it's a mini chain, but not a huge chain. Here's Georgetown Cupcake for your third cupcakery. If you wanted to ride some bikes, you can rent bikes here at Big Wheel Bicycles in that yellow building. I've done that before. And there's a lot of great places to ride your bike, like up and down the Potomac. You can, you know, cross the bridge into Virginia, go down the Virginia side. You can ride your bike basically all the way from here to George Washington's house in Mount Vernon, all along kind of separate bike paths from the roads. It's a pretty neat ride if you like cycling. You could also just rent some of these like pay by the minute scooters, or pay by the minute Capital bike share, or pay by the hour. But if you're going to do it all day and you want a nice bike, you know, get it from the actual bike rental shop. This thing here, Giant, says Giant delivers. I have a funny story about Giant, which is my first trip to DC. Actually, I wasn't in DC. I was in Alexandria, which is just across the river from DC, staying at a residence in there. And at the front desk, I said, like, hey, can you tell me where a supermarket is? And they're like, yeah, there's a Giant supermarket just down the street. And I'm like, oh, cool. What's the name of the supermarket? Yeah, it's Giant. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's great that it's big. What's the name? Oh, the name's Giant. Jokes on the funny California boy. That's for sure. All right, now here we see a sign that says Stand with Ukraine, in particular because this is the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, D.C. So if you want to show your support for Ukraine when you're in the D.C. area, this would be the place you would want to do it. And you see right there, Embassy of Ukraine. All right, now as we come up here on 34th Street, there's a kind of cool old-timey Starbucks next to the escape game, which I think is like an escape room. You can see more of these like old row houses in the running company. And then as we come up on this little street, this is like, if you were here during rush hour, like 6 o'clock, M Street gets so busy because it's one of like the major arteries to get people out of DC, because they're all trying to get right up here on this bridge, the Key Bridge, which makes for a pretty neat walk too. If you're here and you want to keep walking and you don't want to turn back, you can continue along the Key Bridge all the way into Virginia, which is the state right across the river. And from there, I think the best walk to take is along Wilson Boulevard that runs along the Orange Line, and there's a whole bunch of stops of the metro, and you can take it all the way up to Ballston. That's probably your last convenient metro to take back. And so all those high-rises that you see over there, that's Virginia. That's the Roslyn neighborhood. And all those high-rises are there because DC has a height limit. Like in DC, you can't be higher than like 15 stories or something for a building. And so anybody who wants a skyscraper, there's going to be right across the way in Virginia. Okay, so looking down here, there's this canal, the C&O Canal here. There used to be like a canalway that they would pull boats along for cargo. It has a bike path, a dirt bike path that you can ride next to it. That bike path also runs for a long, long way. You can see a plane taking off up there because we are quite near Reagan National Airport. So you'll hear and see a lot of planes taking off. This bridge that you see here, this is the K Street Expressway. So we were on M, this is K. K basically just tries to get you out of the city, and in a much faster way than M Street does. And then as we cross this little entrance onto K Street, we see a double-decker bus right there. A lot of people like to ride those around DC. They don't want to do a lot of walking. And that brings us to the Potomac River. And there's a neat little island right here that you can walk out on with the pedestrian bridge. Neat things, you can just walk along the Potomac, and you see another plane taking off right there. And then just in the background behind me, Georgetown University. I get my universities confused. Too many universities all in one place. Georgetown University, just up on the hill that way. Fellow explorers, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see some more of my videos on Washington, D.C., you'll find links here on the screen or in the description below. As usual, I won't say goodbye because I'm going to see you in one of those videos.